This is the second one that we've had. We will have 5 in-person meetings, and then Mrs. Rayner is up here right now recording this. There are some people who just cannot make it to any of these, so we'll put it on our YouTube channel, and once we get it put up there, we'll send a link so everybody can see it, especially if you are one of 2 people in your family here, just so that everybody gets the same information. Okay, so if you work here at the school, would you please stand up so I can introduce you? We'll start next to me. Mrs. Rayner is here. She's our technology teacher. Mr. LePrairie over here is our middle school science teacher and our safety officer in the school. Mrs. Pinky, toward the back, is our kindergarten teacher. And then Mrs. Brown in the far back has moved to middle school this year, and she's going to take over English reading and social studies in that hallway. So we welcome them here. I did ask all of the staff to attend one meeting so that they can also hear this information as the parents are hearing it also. So that's why there's only a sprinkling of them here. Everybody attend one of the 5 and make room for parents who are coming in and families who are coming in. So my goal is to give all 5 meetings the same information. So because of that, I have some talking points on my paper here. And as we go through it, I will stop intermittently, and then I will ask if you have questions or comments at that time. Okay? So the first thing I want to say is thank you for being a St. John Newman family, a St. John Newman parent. Some of you are relatively new, and some of you have been here for a long, long time. And that's what keeps our school going and our Panther family going. We have been here since 1977. And as the members of our board have said, we have weathered storms before, and hopefully this one doesn't get too rocky, but we will weather it too. And so we thank you for being here at the school. Ways that you can help with the school, though, are probably the biggest way right now would be to help with bingo. Bingo has been closed since March 15th. They did reopen 2 weeks ago to a smaller crowd than what we've had before. But bingo brings in such a big revenue for us. It really is what helps us keep our lights on, pay our salaries, and be able to be here, continue to be in here in the building. So part of the volunteer form that you sign is that you will help at bingo a certain number of times a year, and I just ask that you fulfill that obligation. If you would be interested in becoming a games manager, currently we have 3, 2 of which can work consistently, but that's hard to have those same 2 people working weekend after weekend after weekend. So what we're looking is to build up 6 to 8 people who could take turns. Working once every 8 weeks is a lot better than working every weekend or every other weekend. The other way this year especially to help will be with our auction. We have a date of November 6th for our auction. At this time, we don't know if it'll be online, in person, or a mixture of both. But we do rely on the funding from that for a lot of scholarship help, for little activities that we do through the year, and to fund our school in general. So we ask if we can sponsor the auction, please let us know. If you know someone who can sponsor the auction, ask them, or tell us and we will ask them. Donate things for our silent auction, and we will make it a good auction and a good and profitable auction, no matter which way we have to make it run this year. We also ask, as a parent, to help the school that you are flexible. One of the biggest ways to do this is to make sure that you have somebody in place to watch your children in the event of a classroom shutdown, of a school shutdown, or in case they themselves are sick and cannot come to school. We want to ensure that if somebody is ill, that they do not come into the building. Sometimes we stretch that and we say, well, it's just a little whatever, and at this time, keeping people out of the school who are ill is our best practice that we can have. So if you're flexible, either with your employment or your child care situation, it helps the school stay open and stay safe. I'm going to really kind of start this section by saying we do not have an online option. We, based on opinions, based on the board discussion, based on teacher discussion, we have decided that we will hold school in person. It's not feasible to set a computer up in a classroom and film a teacher all day and expect a child to sit home and watch that. That's not education. We don't have the resources to have a teacher who focuses online while another teacher focuses in the classroom. So when we looked at our budget and looked at what we can do, our option is online. If you are choosing to not come here, then you cannot just go home and say, I'm just going to teach my kids this year. If that's the case, you need to either enroll at your local school and enroll in their online option, or find a homeschool to join. But your child has to be kept track of, and you have to notify the state that that's your intention. Okay? So coming here or just saying, I'm just going to keep them home this year, and then next year I'll bring them back, that's not the way the state works and the way that education works. Just to be clear with that, okay? Our plan to be in person is to be here 8 o'clock to 3:10, 5 days a week, except for those days that we have early dismissal, and keep our calendar the way that we've had it for the last maybe 43 years. I don't know if it's been that long. We are here in the building to protect our staff, to protect our students, and to protect all of our families, including, extended families that are here. So what we ask is that everybody follows the rules. Some of those rules we don't like. As an administrator, there's rules that I don't like, but it's what has been set forth to allow us to open and allow us to stay as safe as possible. If your child is sick, then they need to stay home. We will not have a lot of parent interaction within the building this year. We will have drop-off and pick-up like we did yesterday at the curb on the street out here to keep as many people as possible out of the building. We don't have our kindergarten volunteer won't be coming at the beginning of the year this year. Volunteers that have come in for various things won't be allowed in the building. So it's, in a sense, it's the essential personnel and the essential kids here, and everybody else wait outside. So we've explored some ideas of how to get parents together, because part of our culture is getting to know each other and getting to know new families or old families in new ways. And that's not something that we want to lose. So we'll figure out how to do that and work together. Okay? Now, if we are shut down by the governor or by the health department here, we do have a plan to go online. If that's the case, if the whole school shuts down, then the teachers will still come into the building and they will log onto their computers at the same time every day, and they will teach from their classroom. Right now, it looks like that would be 8:30 in the morning to 11:30 in the morning for, let's talk about elementary school first. So K-5, the teachers will come in 8:30 to 11:30, they'll be online. They will give their instruction at that time. They would give kids time to work as they would in the classroom. A teacher doesn't teach from 8:30 to 11:30 straight all day, but the class would be live in a sense at that time. Then in the afternoon, the teacher would take the time to make individual appointments or small group appointments with their class, so that every student still gets to ask a question. We know that not everybody is comfortable asking a question straight online in front of the whole class on the computer, or even talking on the computer at all. So that's our way to ensure that each child gets paid attention to by their teacher and gets time to ask questions, and they can check in one-on-one. On Fridays, it would be a catch-up day, an assessment day. The teachers are still working, and they still have their hours. but then the students could use that time to do an extra project or catch up on what they haven't been able to do as of yet. I lost my train of thought, but I'm sorry, it's going to happen. So, in any case, if we shut down, the teachers will send out a learning map through Office 365 so that you know for the next week what that class will be doing. Now, we also understand that as parents, you work and your schedules might not fit if the, our 80-year-old grandma is watching the kids. They may not understand how to log in, how to get the child working on the computer, so all of those sessions will be recorded. Then you can look at it at a later time. But our option is to be consistent, 8:30 to 11:30 in the afternoon, some one-on-one time. Now, middle school would have their normally scheduled classes. So if they have math first, then they would log on at 8 o'clock and have math with Mr. Fargo. Then science at 9 o'clock with Mr. LaPrairie. Their day would look very similar to what their day in school looks like. Again, with those classes being recorded so that they can look at them later. Okay? Are there questions so far? Questions or comments about that? So, next we have if somebody tests positive or is exposed to COVID. The first thing, if somebody in the immediate family that the child lives with is exposed to COVID, I ask that you call me to notify me. If you don't and you go to get tested, then the health department will notify me. And I think that there's a delay in that. So I would ask that you call me and notify me first so that we can stop any possible spreading that could occur. I will not give out anybody's name. What I will do is email that class and say somebody in the class has been exposed to COVID, or by that time maybe has tested positive for COVID. And then instructions on where to go from there will come forth. If somebody in the classroom is diagnosed with COVID, then that classroom will shut down for at least 72 hours. Now 72 hours starts from whenever day it shuts down. It would include a weekend. So we're not talking, necessarily 3 business days. It would be 3 calendar days on that. If we shut down, then that teacher would immediately go to the online teaching mode. If somebody is positive with COVID, then that child would need to stay home in quarantine for the prescribed number of days. And I'll be honest with you, I feel like that number of days keeps changing. We're following CDC guidelines, and the state, the health department here for their guidelines, so it's anywhere between 14 and 21 days. There's very specific things that they say, and it says just because you're feeling better doesn't necessarily mean that quarantine time is over. That we have to follow that what they say. If your child just has a fever, and we know that you can get regular sick right now, the only illness that we're facing is not COVID, then you need to speak with a doctor and let them decide if you need to get tested for COVID, or if they think it's strep throat or the common cold or anything else that gives you a fever or makes you not feel well. If they say you need a COVID test, then you're going to have to stay home in quarantine. If they say, I really feel like it's the common cold, and they sign that note for that, after 24 hours after that fever is gone, then you can come back to school. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. I have found that doctors have been pretty good about saying those don't fit the symptoms of COVID. I understand that you're sick, maybe it's a sinus infection. So in that case, we would defer to the rules that we've always had. If you have a fever, you shouldn't be in the building. Okay? When we ask our questions, though, we will say, are you under the care of a fever? Because taking a Tylenol or an Advil and bringing that fever down doesn't count as not having a fever. So it's after the time that you're unmedicated, that fever goes away is when you would be able to come back to school. Okay? If there's a child who is home because they've been exposed to COVID, who doesn't necessarily have it, but let's just say that they were at their grandparents' house and the grandparents' neighbor came over and the neighbor was diagnosed with COVID, so now that child has been exposed. If you know that you have been exposed to a positive case, then you need to stay home and quarantine. That child, we have a plan in place that they can look at our learning maps that the teachers will turn in every week, and they can still do the work at home. It would not be necessarily guided all day long for a teacher. They would lose the lecturing time and the teaching time. But I think most of our teachers have agreed to check in on that student. We don't want anyone to fall behind. It just falls into that thing of when would they do both jobs. Okay, so if a child is home for exposure, or even if they have COVID and they feel better, good enough to work, there's online components that our curriculum has. There's math that can be done at home. There are assignments that they can still do while they're at home. We will utilize Office 365 as much as possible. Mrs. Rayner will work with all of the classes to ensure that they know how to log in. And if you have questions, then you can always call and we can show you how that works too. There are different components to Office 365 that have been added over the summer to make it more education friendly, so that we can use those different options. And the teachers pretty much should do the same applications through Teams and through 365. Okay? That just helps us streamline what we do so that a teacher doesn't have to email a parent and email a student and do double work if we all just get used to the 365. Let's see. Any questions on that so far? Yes.
I was just curious, a little confused for middle school since they switched classes. If sixth grade has a positive case, is it just sixth grade that will then go home, or is it the whole middle school?
And that falls to, so the question was, if middle school has a positive case, will everybody go home or will it be the whole middle school? That's also the case if there's a second grade person who has a fourth grade sibling, then would both, and the second grade shuts down, would the fourth grade student have to stay home also? And according to what's put out so far from CDC, then it would be just that sixth grade classroom. In between our classes, I don't know if it'll come in here after you're done, but we have a sanitizing gun. It looks like a futuristic, pretty cool thing that
Ghostbusters.
What did you say?
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters that sprays out. Virex is what we use, and Sam and Issa, after the first meeting, came in and sprayed down all the chairs. That's the goal to happen in all of the classrooms, and then let it sit for the prescribed 3 to 5 minutes before someone else is in that seat. But that being said, if the health department comes in and calls it an outbreak, they might tell us something totally different. So it answers your question as much as I can answer it, knowing that whatever comes out might be totally different.
Okay, I was just confused since they are, they're saying call the same teachers.
Yeah.
And so I know the teacher would have to, so I'm confused on which teacher actually is their homeroom teacher, is their home-based classroom.
Right. So we have plans in place for a teacher who would be out due to exposure or due to a positive diagnosis for other teachers to fill in those areas. So yeah, good question. Hallway movement, we are sticking to the right side of the hall to go one way, and one way, if you're going that way, it'll be on that side of the hall. We've changed the stairwell to go to the cafeteria. Downstairs will be the one that we usually use. Upstairs will be this one back here. We have 3 different lunches scheduled. At this time, we are allowed to eat lunch in the cafeteria. We cannot have hot lunch served, and we are turning off the microwaves for now to lessen physical movement throughout the cafeteria. At some point, if the restrictions are lessened and we can have hot lunch catered in, we would love to do that again. At this point, it's a question of keeping hot lunches hot, because they're willing to wrap everything individually, but there's also, health department rules about how hot you have to keep food so we don't get sick. So it's a kind of logistics issue with that too. So we ask that lunches are, just kind of ready to eat. There will be adults in the cafeteria supervising. Adults for younger kids can help open a Capri Sun or, the packet of whatever, but we will limit usage as much as possible. We have several tables, extra tables in the lunchroom, and each lunch came down yesterday, and we made a seating chart so that no seat is ever sat in by 2 children over the 3 lunches. And it utilizes, like I said, a lot of tables. The children this year will leave their classroom, wash their hands, go downstairs and eat lunch. After lunch, they'll go outside to the playground. So that's opposite of what we've done for the last several years. They'll take their own lunch box, which means they won't drop it in the bucket when they get to school. And unfortunately, 5th grade will not get to do their community service by taking those buckets downstairs. That's something that they look forward to, and they won't get to do that. But Mr. Shockey is coming up with some other things that they can do instead. In any case, so after lunch they'll come upstairs. There is time between the lunches to sanitize those tables before the next lunch comes downstairs. It is our hope that we can eat in the lunchroom and don't have to stay in a classroom to eat, and then be able to go outside. The mask usage in the school, right now the rules are if you are 10 years old and above and you're in public, then you're supposed to have a mask on. In our school here, that starts in 4th grade. That's when our youngest 10-year-old is. So as we started the school day yesterday, that's what we said. If you're in the building, then you need to wear a mask while you're in the building. The kids younger than that needed to wear a mask when they did hallway transitions to a different class or to the cafeteria, to the restroom. And that's a tough one to take, right? To think, am I going to sit here all day in this mask? Good news and bad news about that. The good news is we can use our air conditioners because they're swamp coolers. It's not a central air system. When the heaters come on, it's the same thing. It comes through radiant heat. The bad news is it can get really hard to sit in a mask all day. So that's one of the things we will keep revisiting as rules are lessened, as mandates are lessened. We will see what works in the school. So our plan is to follow the rules because we have to follow the rules to stay open. But we also know that procedures we have set forth and things like that, that they're not written in stone. Okay? Before I move on to drop off and pick up, are there any questions? Yes?
So I have a quick question. I know 5th grade, usually the students move to like 3 or 4 different classes, religion, social studies, those kind of things. So is it possible for those teachers to move instead of the students so that they stay centralized in Mr. Shockey's class?
So the question was, in the elementary school, classroom movement for social studies, religion, and science. Can the teachers move instead of the students? At this point, as of today, they're not going to switch at all. But that's probably a better idea once that happens, for several reasons. But a student shouldn't go sit in another student's desk unless we went in and sanitized that room in between, like middle school will happen. So that will happen in middle school, but right now not in elementary. and the teachers are deciding how they're going to work those classes, and it might be at the beginning, they just teach their own, and then as the year goes on, see how that envelops. Answer your question? Good. And there was somebody else? Maria.
Have you thought about relaxing maybe the uniform, why they have to wear the mask, just kind of as a trade-off, so make it more comfortable? That's what they did at our office, like they gave us like a less stringent dress code since we have to wear a mask in the office.
So the question was, could we lessen the uniform requirements a little bit because we have to wear a mask? Are you a student here? No, that has not crossed my mind at all. I'll say that our uniform, I understand that it's hard to be in that uniform 4 days a week or 5 days a week, especially if you're here for 11 years.
On the collar, it's just hot.
But,
You know, the extra polo shirt.
okay, so the polo shirt, so the collar itself, and it's something that we did change with uniforms this year is, and it's for girls, not for boys, but to be able to wear yoga pants and whatnot. And I think, let me think about that. I will think about that and put it out.
More fun for the kids, like, hey, it's this, but guess what?
Yay, you have to wear a mask, but nothing on your shirt. So like more of a t-shirt setting is what you're saying. Let's think about that. Thank you for that suggestion. Yeah, I had not thought about
I
that.
mean, even if they were just plain navy blue or gold or gray t-shirts,
Right.
it might actually
Right.
still be in like guidelines of the colors, but without the color.
Yeah. We'll think about that. So I'll send after these are all done, I'll send a wrap-up email. I told the first group, things will come up in the different groups that you don't get to hear. So I told them I would send a wrap-up email, and there's 3 more after you too, so we'll go from there. But yeah, nice thought. But you do have to wear PE shoes every day because we will have gym every day. No sandals on that. Any other thoughts or comments or questions so far? Okay, so drop off, pick up, tardies, appointments. Yesterday we knew that the drop off especially was going to take a little bit of time. And we practiced a few days ago with the teachers to see how long it took. And that was about 16 cars. After we went out with the teachers, we talked about condensing what we had done. And then yesterday after the drop-off, we also talked about how can we streamline this, and how can we condense this. Because we know that people need to get to work. People don't want to wait out there all morning. And kids need to get into the building so that the teachers can start teaching them. I would like to ask for your partnership to say, you need to do your part to have your child ready to get out of the car. If that means having their backpack in their seat, and water bottle and lunchbox, everything ready so that they can get out of the car and we're not spending, waiting for that car to move because the backpack was somewhere else or they forgot something. Everybody needs to get off on the passenger side. No matter where they sit in the car, they need to get off on the sidewalk. What we have decided is we are going to give everybody a piece of paper. It has your child's last name on one side of it. On the other side of it, it has the COVID-19 questionnaire and a map of how our pickup and drop off will work. Thank you, Mrs. Rayner, for making that so quickly. So Mrs. Brown has them at the back. I didn't give them to you yet because I know you'll fiddle with your paper instead of listening up here. But in any case, on the back it has the COVID questionnaire. So when we come up, when you approach the front of the drop-off line, what we would like for you to do is start having your kids get out of the car. We can take their temperature while they're standing outside. Don't drive away until we have taken the temperature. But we will say something like, have you read the questionnaire? Do you fit any of those questions? If you answer no, and the temperature is acceptable, and the child's already out of the car with backpack and whatnot, Mr. LaPrairie and I can move on to the next car. The child can walk inside, and we're ready to start school. Okay? I know, I've heard that other schools are handing out paper questionnaires. I know that Other schools are allowing parents to do that at home. As a staff, we talked about that, and we are not comfortable with that. We're not comfortable with everybody taking a temperature at home. We want to use our thermometers. Okay? I think yesterday there were a lot of questions asked at the drop-off, which slowed it down a little bit, understandably. And people not ready to get out, and Mr. LaPrairie and I also weren't streamlined in how we were asking the questions. So while it didn't take, an astronomically long time, it was longer than what we would like, and I'm sure longer than what you would like too. So if you keep that piece of paper in your dashboard for drop-off and pickup, then we can say, does your child exhibit any of these? Say no, take a temperature, they can go inside. If there's a hole in front of you in the car line, keep moving forward. The bus, Mr. Weber will take temperatures before children get on the bus, so they don't need to come here and have that done again. So he's going to utilize the teacher parking lot here, which you all have a driver's license, so you all know you're not supposed to block the driveway, right? That counts as our driveway or any neighbor's driveways too. But when the bus gets here, if he can pull into that parking lot, that's that big old bus, less of kids that has to come in and just drop off over here. So he will let the kids off. They'll actually walk through this gate. They'll go around where Mrs. Soleil's job is to be the greeter and hold that door open, and then they can just walk through and go straight to class. Okay? So because of that, we don't have to utilize the bus stop before school, so you can actually park through that bus stop system. Good job to everybody who parked, left that open yesterday. So I just told you to break this rule, but don't break this rule. So unfortunately, we'll all get it covered together. Now, in the afternoon, for pickup, preschool and pre-K will be dismissed at 3:10, and they have their own doors to go out. Preschool will go out this door, pre-K will go out their door. Those streets that say loading zone on it are loading zones. Last year during Mass, we had some people get tickets because they were parked in the loading zone. So those will continue to be a loading zone for that purpose, for those kids to get in and out. We are asking for 3-year-old preschool parents to either park across Joliet that way, or on the front of Orman across the street, not blocking the driveway, of course, to be able to walk across the street and walk their child in. Because I just think if they're on this little area right here, they're going to get mixed up in the car line, and that'll be a problem. In any case, the way that it's routed is we will drop off over here, so you need to be on Joliet after that. And we're actually going to turn this corner and go in front of Orman in front of the school. One of the issues that happened yesterday were people parking at a stop sign because they had to cross the street, but then people who came through jumped in that line. We'll just make a square around the block. And that will be on the back of your paper that you get when you come out. Okay? The front of your paper with your last name on it, if you'll put it in your windshield, then when Mr. LaPrairie and I come out, some of you don't have the last name as your child, and it's pretty easy for me to say Seth's mom, but that doesn't work on our radio, right? I had to remember Seth's last name is Gross. And so that's the way we will know who's there. And Mr. LaPrairie doesn't know everybody as much as I do, and we have new families in the school that I don't know yet. So now if someone else is picking up that baby, for goodness sakes, don't try to give this paper to everybody. Make another one. Put your last name on it so that we know who it is. Stick it up in that front corner. So just when we walk by, we say, here's who to send out. That's how we did it yesterday. I may or may not have talked to you. I may have walked by and said, I already called you, because I was on the radio calling in the school of what kid was there. All of the kids will be packed up by 3:10 in the afternoon because the bus leaves and because preschool leaves. So they will have an activity in their room but be ready to go. Middle school will dismiss from the gym because it's their last class of the day. We're trying to work something out in Mrs. Pinky so that kindergarten is a little bit closer to this exit door so that it's faster to get kids out. Okay, that's something that we're working on, streamlining that. But it took us 18 minutes to get 65 families out the door yesterday, so that's not too bad. Unfortunately, we're going to have to be patient. I have the parking authority here to try to go through this and have a good plan, and she laughed at me and said, you call any school you want to. Parking pickup and drop off are difficult. So we're doing our best, okay? And if you cooperate and do your best by having your child ready, once they get in the car, ask them to buckle immediately so you can be on your way, and that's great too. Okay? If you have a child, so you have pre-K but nobody older, right? So for the people who I'm recording this for at home, if you have a child who's in preschool or pre-K and a child who's in elementary or middle school, your child will be released at 3:10 with the preschool or pre-K children. They will not go into that classroom though. If you are a pre-K older sibling, the older sibling would just walk out the back door and there will be an adult there to be dismissed at the gate. And preschool will wait out here at the trophy case. Again, there'll be an adult there to supervise, and then they'll be dismissed as the parents get here. And that'll cut a couple people out from our car line there too, but nobody should go through the car line twice. Tardies and appointments. If your child is tardy and you get here after the gate is closed, then you need to go to the front of the school. You need to call the school and say that you're here so that somebody can meet you at the door. So again, it's not a parent walking a child into the school. Mr. LaPrairie, Mrs. Soleil, or myself will walk out with a thermometer and a question to ask those questions. Please don't just drop your kid off at the curb and then leave. You have to wait until the temperature is taken. Please do what you can to be on time, okay? If you have an appointment, we ask that you try your best to make all appointments outside of school hours. If you do make an appointment during school, we ask that you not come back for the rest of that day, so you're not in and out, in and out. We understand that there's some orthodontists that will only put braces on, put braces off in the morning, but the rest of their appointments, they can make it so it's after school time. Okay, and we ask that you make every effort to do that too. For your flu shot, don't just run at lunch and get one. If you can do it after school, do it then, please. But if you do need to take your child out of school, we ask that you notify the office in advance. Give us a phone call. Cheryl's really great about writing that down. She sets an alarm on her phone, and then she says, oh, it's 2 o'clock, my alarm's going off, Joey needs to go. So somebody on our COVID team, Miss Tori, Mr. LaPrairie, Miss Cheryl, myself, will go and get that child out of class, and then they will wait up in the front by this door outside of the office, and then when you get here, you'll call, then we can bring out the sign-out sheet, you can sign them out, and then they can be on their way. Okay, but like I said, then we ask that they don't come back that day. Tardies, appointments, leaving early. Those are just those main procedures that you would be here for. If you as a parent need to make a payment through credit card, call Cheryl, say I'm coming in with my credit card. She'll meet you at the front window. If you're sending a check, you can put it in an envelope in your child's planner or in the family folder, and we can take it that way, and we'll give you a receipt back that way. If you pay with cash, I don't know if you want your child to carry that much cash, but we'll make arrangements to meet you at the door to get that. Okay? Any questions about that? Audrey?
So is it possible to maybe do half the school for drop-offs, maybe do half the school in front and half the school in back, so it's like less congested back there?
Couple of reasons why it's not. Can we do drop off in the front and in the back? the front is designated no parking zone. So I get it, like I just said, a loophole, if we're moving, it's not parking, but if you're dropping off a child, that needs to become a loading zone. And we also don't have that many thermometers, or staff to staff all of those doors. The classroom teachers are in their classrooms. I have had some parents say if we need help with that, then they would come in, which could be a possibility. At this time, I ask you to be patient and let's see how this goes for the first couple of weeks, and then we will keep revisiting it to see how to make it easier for everybody. When we first talked about it, I think that's what we said. We had a whole bunch coming in at the door at the end. People coming in here, but that no parking zone, the parking authority was really not wanting to change that one, and that street is so narrow over there. So that's part of the reason why. But give us a couple weeks and let's see how this goes, if it gets faster, if it works out this way. The other thing is dismissing by last name at different times. The problem with that is I don't know what to do with the child who was supposed to be dismissed 10 minutes ago and they're still here, but then the next group is waiting to come in, or how do you keep people from parking the 10 minutes earlier on there? So, Emily.
What time did you say drop-off will begin?
7:50. Our teachers' work hours are 7:45 to 3:45. So 7:50 is exactly right after they get here. So that's really the earliest that we can put it in there. Yeah.
Sorry, so then are you going to start pickup at the 3:10 mark? Or
3:15. So 3:10 is for preschool pre-K and the bus. And then if cars are lined up out there, then those are the cars that we will start with. Just don't block the bus if you're those first kids, if Mr. Weber's not here yet. But then as soon as he leaves, then we can block the bus thing. But yes, 3:15 is the first. Please don't park out there at 2:30. And we should be outside at 3:15 beginning to call names. Okay? Please follow parking rules. I think I said that. Watch for kids in and around the street. Keep everybody safe. Derek.
Joe, what happens if somebody rides the bus and comes down or develops symptoms? What happens to the people that are on the bus? Are they then asked to quarantine as well?
So the question was, if a bus rider comes down with COVID or is exposed to COVID or is diagnosed with it, then the bus riders would probably be quarantined themselves. That would count kind of as that classroom. And then, the health department is the one to say yes, no, today, yeah.
Or is the health department okay with the bus running?
Yes, they need to be spaced
Okay.
on the bus, and so if I didn't say it, out in the hallway, we do have transportation sign-up sheets in there based on where the kids are getting on and off. Mr. Weber will make a seating chart so members of the same family can share a seat. But other than that, we don't have a lot of families that do ride, and we should be able to space them apart. Yes?
So would the same be true for like kids that are in the after-school program? Like as far as if there was a kiddo that comes down with COVID, would that group of kids need to?
So the question was the aftercare program. If there was somebody who was positive in that, then would the program need to close down? Then yes, because those kids would be in that classroom with someone who was positive, so that would be considered like a classroom. So yeah. Good. Any other questions? All right. We are glad to be here. It was really great to have the kids in the school yesterday. Somebody went home and said, it's all the same, nothing is different. And maybe that's good if that's the comment that you had. And the kids don't realize the different things that the parents are thinking about, that the teachers are thinking about. The kids feed off of what we tell them. And our attitudes and our talks that we have with them or with other people that they overhear is what drives how they feel about school, how they feel about life. So I ask you to be positive if you're around your child and talking about school and the parameters that we've set. And please realize that these are the rules that everybody needs to follow to keep our kids in school and to keep them educated and to keep them safe. So, like I said, as the year goes on and if people remain healthy and we can relax things, then we would do that too. We have to follow the rules set forth by the governor and by the health department, and so that's where we're getting our information from. Okay? My prayer is that we have a great year full of lots of learning and laughter and good experiences. And if there's some extra rules we have to follow to be able to do that, then that's what we'll do. All right? Thank you for coming. Mrs. Brown, would you call the names on your papers? And then if she calls your name, you can go back and get your paper for your car. Stop on the outside. See if you want to be a room parent, if you can volunteer for bingo, or if you need aftercare or bus service. The papers are out to the left. Thanks for coming, everybody.